Marcus Johnson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he fixed another broken phone screen. The small fan in his electronics repair shop did little to fight the hot Atlanta summer. It was almost closing time, and Marcus was looking forward to a cold drink at home. At 45 years old, with his muscular build hidden under simple work clothes, no one would guess he had spent 20 years in the military. Not just any soldier, but a feared Delta Force commander who had led some of America's most dangerous secret missions. 3 years ago, Marcus had left that life behind. He was tired of the fighting, the danger, and the nightmares that came after. He wanted peace, so he used his savings to open this small shop in a busy part of town. Most of his customers were locals who liked his fair prices and honest work. Marcus enjoyed fixing things instead of breaking them. It was a simple life, but a good one. Just 15 more minutes, he said to himself, looking at the clock on the wall. The street outside was getting quiet as other shops closed for the day. Marcus carefully put away expensive phone parts in the locked cabinet behind his counter. His shop wasn't fancy, but he kept it clean and organized. Photos of his parents and younger sister hung on one wall, the family that had supported him through his military career and now visited his shop every Sunday. The bell over the door rang. Marcus looked up, surprised to see 2 police officers enter. One was tall and thin with pale skin and cold eyes. The other was shorter with a round face. Both wore the blue uniforms of the Atlanta Police Department. "Can I help you, officers?" Marcus asked politely. He had great respect for police. During his military time, he had worked with law enforcement many times. "We're investigating reports of stolen electronics in this area," the tall officer said, looking around the shop with narrow eyes. "We need to check your inventory records." Something felt wrong to Marcus. His military training had taught him to notice small details, and several things didn't add up. The officers' badges looked new and shiny, but their uniforms seemed slightly too big. The tall one kept touching his gun belt in a way no trained officer would. "Of course," Marcus said calmly, not showing his suspicion. "My records are on the computer. Let me pull them up for you." As Marcus moved to his computer, he watched in the security mirror as the shorter officer nudged his partner and pointed to the expensive phones on display. The tall one nodded and started moving toward the cabinet where Marcus kept the most valuable items. "This area has seen a lot of break-ins," the shorter officer said loudly, trying to keep Marcus's attention. "Especially businesses owned by, well, minority owners. They think you people don't fight back." Marcus felt his muscles tense at the racist comment but kept his face neutral. Now he was certain. These weren't real police. No professional officer would talk that way. Years of combat had taught Marcus to stay calm in dangerous situations. He needed to watch and wait for the right moment. "Is that so?" Marcus replied, pretending to search for files on his computer. In the mirror, he saw the tall fake officer slide behind the counter and take out a small bag from his pocket. The man started filling it with expensive phone parts from the cabinet Marcus had just locked. Somehow they had a key. "Yeah, these criminals, they target shops like yours because they think black owners are easy targets," the shorter one continued, not realizing how offensive he sounded. "We're just here to protect you, make sure everything's in order." Marcus noticed the security camera in the corner had been turned to face the wall. These men had planned this carefully. They had store keys, knew his closing time, and had disabled his security. This wasn't random. They had specifically targeted his business. "Found the files," Marcus said, clicking randomly on his computer. "But before I show you, can I see your badges again? Just for my records." The tall fake officer stopped stealing for a moment, looking annoyed. "We already showed you when we came in." "Department policy changed," the shorter one said quickly. "We have to show ID when requested now. Too many complaints." He pulled out a badge and flashed it so quickly Marcus couldn't read it. "Sorry, I didn't catch the name," Marcus said, standing up straight. At 6'2", he was taller than both men. Years of military training had kept him fit and strong. "Officer Wilson," the shorter one snapped. "Now about those records. And your precinct number?" Marcus asked calmly. The 2 men exchanged quick glances. The tall one's hand moved toward his gun. "Listen, we don't have time for 20 questions," the tall fake officer said. his voice turning hard. "Just show us your supply records and the storage room, now." Marcus had seen enough. These men were not police. They were thieves using stolen or fake uniforms to rob businesses, probably targeting minority owners who might be afraid to question police. It was a clever but evil plan. "Of course, officers," Marcus said, his voice changing slightly. Anyone who had served under Commander Johnson would have recognized that tone. It was the voice he used before leading his team into combat. "The storage room is right through here." Marcus walked toward the back door, listening carefully to the footsteps behind him. The tall fake officer was following too closely. A tactical mistake. The shorter one stayed near the front, probably watching the street. Marcus reached for the storage room doorknob, then stopped. "Actually, I just remembered," he said, turning around. "I need to get the key from my desk." The fake officer sighed with annoyance. "Hurry up, we don't have all day." As Marcus walked back toward the desk, his mind ran through possible scenarios. These men were armed. They might have more friends waiting outside. Fighting them could be dangerous, but letting armed thieves rob his business wasn't an option. 20 years in Delta Force had prepared him for much worse situations than this. Marcus reached into his desk drawer, pretending to look for keys. The tall fake officer stepped closer, impatient. Marcus could smell cheap cologne and cigarettes on the man's uniform. Definitely not a real police officer. Atlanta PD had strict rules about smoking in uniform. "What's taking so long?" the fake officer demanded, putting his hand on his gun. Marcus looked up, his eyes now cold and focused. The years of being a gentle shop owner seemed to fall away. In their place stood Commander Johnson, the man who had led some of the most dangerous missions in American military history. "I think," Marcus said quietly, "that we both know you're not real police officers." The fake officer's face changed quickly. His fake friendly smile disappeared, replaced by an angry look. He pulled out his gun and pointed it at Marcus. "Shut up and get on the ground now," he shouted. The shorter fake officer ran from the front of the store, also pulling out his gun. "We don't want trouble," the shorter one said. "We're taking your stuff and leaving. If you stay quiet, you won't get hurt." Marcus looked at both men, his mind working fast. In his years as Delta Force commander, he had faced much more dangerous people than these two. He noticed several important things right away. The tall one held his gun wrong, with his finger already on the trigger. The shorter one kept looking nervously at the door. Both men were sweating more than the warm room would cause. These weren't professional criminals. They were amateurs playing a dangerous game. "You're making a big mistake," Marcus said calmly. He raised his hands slowly to show he wasn't reaching for a weapon, but he also shifted his weight to the balls of his feet, a fighting stance that most people wouldn't notice. "The only mistake was coming into your shop last," the tall fake officer laughed. "After hitting 6 other places this month, we figured out that black business owners don't fight back. Too afraid of cops." The shorter one started grabbing phones from the display case, stuffing them into a bag. "Hurry up, Mike. Get the cash." 2. "Mike, huh?" Marcus said, memorizing the name slip-up. "So you've been targeting black-owned businesses because you think we're easy targets?" The tall one, Mike, waved his gun angrily. "Enough talking. Open the safe in the back room."
"Now!"
Marcus took one step forward. "And if I don't?" The fake officer's eyes widened with surprise. Most people don't step toward a gun. "I'll shoot you, that's what." But his voice shook slightly. "No, you won't," Marcus said, his voice changing to the command tone he had used with his military unit. "You'll put that gun down before you hurt yourself." The two fake officers looked at each other, confused by Marcus's confidence. This wasn't how their other robberies had gone. The black shop owners they had targeted before had been scared, giving up their money and goods without fighting back. "Last chance," Marcus continued. "Put the guns down and leave. I won't call the police." Mike laughed, but it sounded nervous. "You must be stupid. We are the police, remember?" "No," Marcus said. "You're 2 idiots wearing uniforms that don't fit, carrying badges you flash too quickly to be read, and holding guns you don't know how to use properly." The shorter fake officer looked worried now. Mike, let's just grab what we can and go. This guy's weird. No, Mike shouted, his face turning red. I'm not letting some black shop owner talk to me like that. He stepped forward and pressed the gun against Marcus's chest. Open the safe or die right here. Time seemed to slow down for Marcus. His Delta Force training took over automatically. He saw the situation with perfect clarity. Mike's finger was on the trigger, but the gun's safety was still on. The shorter fake officer was watching the door, not Marcus. The security camera was still turned to the wall. No witnesses except the 3 men in the room. Marcus moved. His left hand shot up, grabbing Mike's wrist and twisting it sharply. The gun dropped from Mike's hand before he could even shout in pain. At the same time, Marcus's right elbow slammed into Mike's solar plexus, knocking the wind from his lungs. As Mike gasped for air, Marcus spun him around, using the fake officer's body as a shield against the second man. "Don't move!" the shorter fake officer yelled, pointing his gun at them both. His hand was shaking badly. "You'll hit your friend," Marcus said calmly, holding Mike in front of him. "And I don't think you're ready to kill someone today, are you?" The man's eyes darted around, looking for help that wasn't coming. Marcus watched his eyes, the windows to intention. When the shorter man decided to risk the shot, Marcus saw it coming. Marcus dropped to one knee, pulling Mike down with him. The bullet missed them both, hitting a shelf of phone cases. Before the shorter fake officer could fire again, Marcus grabbed Mike's fallen gun from the floor, removed the safety with practiced ease, and pointed it at the shorter man. "Drop it," Marcus ordered. His voice was quiet but filled with authority. The gun clattered to the floor. The shorter fake officer raised his hands, his face pale with fear. "Kick it over here," Marcus said. When the man obeyed, Marcus picked up the second gun and tucked it into his belt. He kept the first gun pointed steadily at both men. "On your knees, hands behind your heads." The shorter man dropped to his knees immediately. Mike, still struggling to breathe after the blow to his stomach, took longer but eventually knelt beside his partner. "You've been targeting minority business owners," Marcus said, "thinking we won't fight back. That we're afraid of police, that we're easy targets." He shook his head. "You picked the wrong shop today." Marcus reached into his desk drawer without looking away from the 2 men. He pulled out several zip ties, the kind he used to bundle cords and wires in the shop. "Hands behind your backs, both of you." "You can't do this," Mike said, finding his voice again. "We're police officers," Marcus laughed for the first time. "No, you're not. Real police don't target businesses based on the owner's race. Real police know how to hold a gun properly. And real police definitely know better than to leave their safety on during a robbery." Fear showed on both men's faces as they realized their mistake. This wasn't just any shop owner. This man knew things that ordinary people didn't know. "Who are you?" the shorter one asked as Marcus tightened the zip ties around his wrists. "Just a guy who fixes phones," Marcus replied. He secured Mike's hands too, then walked to his phone on the counter. He dialed 911. "Yes, I need to report 2 men impersonating police officers who just tried to rob my shop," he said into the phone. "They're restrained, and their weapons are secured." He gave his address and hung up. The shorter fake officer stared at Marcus with growing recognition. "Wait, I know you from somewhere." Marcus ignored him and went to fix the security camera, turning it back toward the room. He checked the time. Only 3 minutes had passed since the fake officers had first pulled their guns. 3 minutes to completely change the situation, just like old times. "The real police will be here soon," Marcus told the 2 men. "You might want to think about how to explain the uniforms, the guns, and why you targeted minority-owned businesses. I hear judges don't like hate crimes." Mike glared up at Marcus. "You're dead, you know that? When we get out, we're coming back for you." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've heard scarier threats from scarier men in scarier places." He sat down on his stool behind the counter, and none of them are around to talk about it anymore. Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder as they approached the shop. Marcus remained calm, watching the 2 fake officers who sat on the floor with their hands tied behind their backs. Mike kept giving Marcus angry looks while the shorter man stared at the floor, avoiding eye contact. "Real police will be here in about 2 minutes," Marcus said, checking his watch. Last chance to tell me who you really are." Neither man spoke. Marcus nodded, expecting this. In his military days, he had interrogated men much tougher than these two. "Fine. But they'll find out anyway," Marcus said. He opened his phone and took photos of both men. "Evidence," he explained. Blue and red lights flashed through the front windows as two police cars pulled up outside the shop. 4 officers jumped out, guns drawn. They approached the door carefully. "Police, open up," a deep voice called. "It's open," Marcus replied calmly. "I'm the shop owner. The suspects are restrained." The door opened and the officers entered in formation, scanning the room with practiced movements. When they saw the 2 men in police uniforms sitting zip-tied on the floor, confusion showed on their faces. "What's going on here?" asked the lead officer, a tall black man with a serious expression. His name tag read Rodriguez. He kept his gun pointed at the ground but ready. "These men came into my shop pretending to be police officers," Marcus explained. "They tried to rob me. Their guns are on the counter there." He pointed to where he had placed both weapons. Officer Rodriguez looked hard at the 2 men on the floor, then back at Marcus. "You took down 2 armed men by yourself?" "Yes, sir," Marcus replied simply. Rodriguez signaled to the other officers to secure the fake police. As they moved forward, the shorter fake officer suddenly shouted, "He attacked us! We're real cops!" This man assaulted officers during an investigation. Rodriguez ignored him, kneeling to examine their uniforms. "These patches are wrong," he said immediately. "And the badges—" He picked up one that had fallen on the floor. "Fakes. Good ones, but definitely fake," Mike cursed loudly. The shorter man fell silent again, knowing their lie had failed. As 2 officers took custody of the fake cops, Rodriguez turned his full attention to Marcus. He studied Marcus's face for a long moment. "You look familiar," Rodriguez said finally. "Have we met before?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't think so. I've owned this shop for 3 years. Before that?" "I was in the military," Marcus said simply. Rodriguez's eyes widened slightly. "Wait a minute, you're not Commander Johnson, Delta Force?" Marcus's expression didn't change, but inside he felt surprise. He had worked hard to keep his military past private. "How would you know that name?" Rodriguez stood straighter, almost like he wanted to salute. "Sir, I was Army Rangers, 2 tours in Afghanistan. Your team extracted my unit when we were pinned down in Kandahar province in 2015. You saved my life and 5 of my men." The other officers looked at Rodriguez with surprise. Marcus remained silent, memories of that difficult mission flooding back. The Rangers had been surrounded, taking heavy fire. His Delta team had gone in against orders, determined not to leave American soldiers behind. "You remember that?" Marcus asked quietly. "How could I forget?" Rodriguez said. "We were sure we were going to die that day. Then your team came out of nowhere like ghosts. You personally carried Sergeant Willis 2 miles to the extraction point after he took a bullet." The 2 fake officers were watching this conversation with growing fear on their faces. The shorter one leaned toward Mike and whispered something. Mike's face turned pale. "Wait," Mike said, voice shaking. "You're that Commander Johnson? The one who led the hostage rescue in Yemen?" Marcus didn't answer, but his silence confirmed it. The Yemen operation had been highly classified, but stories had leaked. The commander who led that mission was said to have eliminated 12 terrorists single-handedly to save American hostages. "Oh God," the shorter fake officer muttered. "We're so dead." "No one's dying today," Marcus said firmly. "But you are going to jail for a long time." Rodriguez turned to his fellow officers. "Get these 2 out of here. Charges are impersonating police officers, attempted armed robbery, and I'm betting we can add hate crime charges since they've been targeting minority businesses." As the fake officers were led away, Rodriguez stayed behind. He pulled out a notepad to take Marcus's statement. The other officers cleared the scene, checking for evidence and taking photos. "So," Rodriguez said, "what happened exactly?" Marcus told the story simply, explaining how he knew the men weren't real police and how he had disarmed them. He left out the details of his combat techniques, making it sound more like good luck than special forces training. And you say they admitted to targeting minority-owned businesses? Rodriguez asked, writing notes. Yes, Marcus confirmed. They said they had hit 6 other places this month. They specifically said they chose black owners because they thought we wouldn't fight back, that we'd be too afraid of police to question them. Rodriguez shook his head in disgust. We've had reports of fake cops robbing businesses in 3 districts, all minority-owned shops, electronic stores, jewelry shops, convenience stores. But victims could never give good descriptions because the fake badges and uniforms confused them. Well, now you've got them, Marcus said. Rodriguez looked up from his notepad. Thanks to you, sir. He hesitated, then asked, Permission to speak freely, Commander? Marcus almost smiled. Once a soldier, always a soldier. We're not in the military anymore, Officer Rodriguez. Say what you want. What are you doing running an electronics shop? With your skills and experience, you could be heading security for some big corporation, making serious money. Marcus looked around his small shop. The shelves of phone parts, the workbench with its specialized tools, the photos of his family on the wall. His new, quiet life. I had enough excitement in 20 years of service, he said. Saw enough violence to last several lifetimes. Here I fix things instead of breaking them. It's peaceful. Rodriguez nodded with understanding. Many veterans sought peace after war, but few had seen the kind of action that Commander Marcus Johnson had experienced. Well, the department will want to recognize you for this, Rodriguez said. Catching these guys is a big deal. They've stolen over $200,000 in goods and cash. Marcus shook his head firmly. No recognition, no news stories, no interviews. I don't want any attention. May I ask why? Marcus thought about the many enemies he had made during his Delta Force career. Terrorist leaders, arms dealers, drug cartels. Most thought Commander Johnson had disappeared or died after his retirement. That anonymity kept him and his family safe. Let's just say I prefer to stay under the radar, Marcus said quietly. Rodriguez respected Marcus's wish to stay out of the spotlight. I understand, sir. We can keep your name out of the official reports. Just list you as the shop owner who defended his property. I appreciate that, Marcus said, relief clear in his voice. After finishing the statement, Rodriguez handed Marcus his card. If you ever need anything, call me directly, day or night. He paused, then added, some of the other victims might want to talk to you. They lost everything when these guys hit their shops. Marcus thought about it. I'll talk to them, but privately. No news cameras. Rodriguez nodded and left. The shop was quiet again. Marcus looked at the mess from the struggle. Phone cases scattered on the floor, a display stand knocked over. He started cleaning up, thinking the excitement was over. He was wrong. The next morning, Marcus arrived at his shop at the usual. He was surprised to see a small crowd waiting outside. At least 15 people stood by the door talking among themselves. When they saw Marcus approach, they turned to look at him with expressions of respect and curiosity. Are you Mr. Johnson? Asked an older woman with gray hair. The one who caught those fake police? Marcus froze. How did they know already? Who told you about that? A man stepped forward. He wore an apron with Kim's Electronics printed on it. I'm James Kim. They robbed my shop last week, took everything. The police called me this morning to say they caught the men who did it. The officer mentioned your shop. So much for staying anonymous, Marcus thought. Yes, they tried to rob me yesterday. I got lucky. Lucky? Another man laughed. That's not what we heard. Word is you took down 2 armed men like some kind of action hero. Marcus sighed. This was exactly what he didn't want. Look, I just want to open my shop and get back to normal. The crowd moved aside, but they didn't leave. As Marcus unlocked the door, James Kim spoke again. We're not here to bother you. We came to say thank you. These men have been terrorizing our community for months. They targeted our shops because we're minorities. They thought we were weak, said a woman who owned a beauty supply store down the street. Thought we wouldn't fight back. Marcus turned to face them. These were his neighbors, fellow business owners who had suffered because of those criminals. I'm sorry about what happened to your shops, but the men are caught now. It's over. It's not over, James said. The police told me there might be more people involved. A whole ring of criminals targeting minority businesses using police disguises to scare us. This was news to Marcus. Rodriguez hadn't mentioned a larger group. How many? They don't know for sure. But those two men couldn't have pulled off all the robberies reported. There had to be others. Marcus felt his old instincts awakening. In Delta Force, he had planned operations to take down entire terrorist networks, not just individual fighters. If this was a larger operation, catching just two men wouldn't end it. Come in, he said to the group. Tell me everything you know. Inside the shop, the business owners shared their stories. All had been robbed by men in police uniforms. But the descriptions varied, sometimes two men, sometimes three. Different heights, different voices. The only common factor was that they all targeted shops owned by minorities, Black, Asian, Hispanic. They took my entire inventory, said Maria Lopez, who owned a jewelry store. Insurance won't cover it all. 20 years of building my business gone in 10 minutes. They held a gun to my head, James Kim said quietly. Told me if I reported, they'd come back and kill my family. Said no one would believe me anyway because they were police. Marcus listened to each story, anger building inside him. These weren't just robberies. This was systematic intimidation of minority communities. The fake officers who had tried to rob him were part of something bigger. As the last person finished speaking, the shop door opened. Officer Rodriguez walked in, surprised to see the crowd. What's going on here, he asked. These people were telling me about their experiences with the fake cops, Marcus explained. Sounds like there are more than just the two we caught. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's actually why I'm here. We questioned those guys all night. They finally cracked this morning. There are at least 5 more men involved, plus someone higher up organizing it all. The business owners murmured in fear and anger. Do you know who they are? Marcus asked. We have descriptions, but no names yet, Rodriguez said. The two we caught were just the lowest level. They claim they don't know who runs the operation. They just get texts telling them which shops to hit. Marcus recognized this structure from his military days. Cell organization, where foot soldiers never meet the leaders. It protected those at the top if anyone got caught. So what happens now? Asked Maria Lopez. We just wait for the others to rob us too? Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. We're working on it. But honestly, we're short-staffed and these guys are smart. They hit different districts each time using different fake badges. Makes it hard to track them. The room fell silent. Marcus felt everyone looking at him, waiting for him to say something. He didn't want to get involved. He had left that life behind, the planning, the danger, the responsibility of leadership. But looking at these people, his neighbors who had been victimized, he couldn't just walk away. What if I helped? Marcus asked Rodriguez. How? In my previous work, I tracked down people who didn't want to be found, Marcus said carefully. I might see patterns you're missing. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. You offering to consult on the case, Commander? Unofficially, Marcus clarified. No reports, no recognition. Just me looking at your evidence, maybe suggesting some approaches. Commander? James Kim asked, looking confused. I thought you were just a shop owner. Marcus ignored the question. Can you get me access to the case files? He asked Rodriguez. Rodriguez thought for a moment, then nodded. I can bring copies here after my shift. Technically, I could lose my job, but if it helps catch these guys, it will, Marcus promised. After Rodriguez left, the business owners looked at Marcus with new curiosity. They had more questions now. Who was he really? What did Rodriguez mean by commander? But Marcus deflected their questions, sending them back to their shops with a promise to help catch the criminals. When everyone was gone, Marcus locked the door and put up a closed for the day sign. He went to the back room and opened a locked cabinet behind some boxes. Inside was a small safe. He entered the combination and opened it. The safe contained a few items from his past life: his service pistol, a set of specialized lockpicks, a military ID card, and a secure phone that couldn't be traced. Tools he had hoped never to use again. Marcus took out the phone and turned it on. There was only one number programmed into it: his former second-in-command in Delta Force, a man who now worked for the FBI. If anyone could help identify the people behind these robberies, it would be him. Marcus hesitated, his finger hovering over the call button. Reaching out to his old team meant stepping back into a world he had left behind. But innocent people were being hurt. Sometimes the only way to fight predators was with another predator. He pressed call. "Johnson, is that really you?" The voice on the phone sounded surprised but pleased. "I thought you'd retired to some beach somewhere." "No beaches, David. Just a small electronics shop," Marcus replied. "But I need your help." David Taylor had been Marcus's right-hand man in Delta Force for 10 years. Now he worked for the FBI, hunting domestic terrorists and organized crime. If anyone could help identify the criminal ring, it was him. "Whatever you need, Commander," David said immediately. "You saved my life 3 times. I owe you." Marcus explained the situation: the fake police officers, the targeted robberies of minority-owned businesses, and the larger organization behind it all. David listened without interrupting. "Send me everything you have," David said when Marcus finished. "Photos of the suspects, descriptions, locations of the robberies, dates, times. I'll run it through our database, see if we get any matches." "I'll have it to you by tonight," Marcus promised. Later that afternoon, Officer Rodriguez arrived at the shop with copies of the case files. The 2 men spread the papers across Marcus's workbench. Photos of crime scenes, witness statements, evidence logs, all the information the police had gathered over months of investigations. 12 robberies total, Rodriguez said. All minority-owned businesses, all hit by men in police uniforms. Total take is over $400,000 in cash and merchandise. Marcus studied the photos carefully. The uniforms are good quality. Not perfect, but close enough to fool most people. That's expensive. Where are they getting them? That's what we can't figure out, Rodriguez admitted. Real police uniforms are tracked carefully. Every piece is accounted for when an officer leaves the force. Marcus picked up a photo showing a close-up of one fake officer's badge. "This isn't just some costume, shop badge. It's a professional job." He looked at Rodriguez. "You might have someone on the inside, a real cop helping them." Rodriguez's face darkened. "I was afraid of that. But which department? These robberies cross 3 different districts." Marcus started organizing the files by date. "Let's map it out, see if there's a pattern." For the next 2 hours, they created a timeline of the robberies. Marcus pinned a map to the wall, marking each location with a red dot. Rodriguez watched with growing respect as Marcus worked, seeing the legendary commander in action. "There," Marcus said finally, stepping back from the map. "See it?" Rodriguez stared at the map. "They're moving in a clockwise pattern around the city, starting in the west, moving north, then east. And they never hit the same district twice in a row," Marcus added. "Makes it harder for any single police unit to connect the dots." "That's smart," Rodriguez admitted. "Too smart for those 2 guys we caught." Marcus nodded. "They're just the muscle. Someone with police knowledge is planning this." Marcus took photos of their work and sent them to David. Within an hour, his phone rang. "I've got something," David said. 3 of the robbery descriptions match a pattern we've seen before. A crew that operated in Boston 2 years ago. Same MO. Fake police targeting minority businesses. "Who ran it?" Marcus asked. "We never caught the leader, but we arrested one guy. His name was Victor Reese. Ex-military, dishonorable discharge for selling equipment on the black market." David paused. "Here's the interesting part. After serving 6 months, he was released and disappeared. Last known location, Atlanta." "That's our connection," Marcus said. "What unit was he in?" "Military police." That explained the knowledge of police procedures. "Send me his file," Marcus said. "Already did? Check your email." Marcus pulled up the file on his laptop. Victor Reese's photo showed a man in his 40s with cold eyes and a scar across his chin. His military record revealed a pattern of racism and abuse of power. "I know this guy," Rodriguez said, looking over Marcus's shoulder. "Or at least I've seen him. He works as a security consultant for some of the rich neighborhoods in Buckhead." "Perfect cover," Marcus said. "He has access to security equipment, knows police procedures, and has connections to hire ex-military guys down on their luck." Marcus forwarded the information to David, who promised to get the FBI involved. But Marcus knew official channels would take time. Meanwhile, Reese and his crew would realize their men had been caught and might flee. Or worse, take revenge on the shop owners who had spoken out. "We need to move fast," Marcus told Rodriguez, "before they disappear." "What are you suggesting?" Rodriguez asked cautiously. "I need to find Reese tonight just to watch him, see who he meets with. If we can identify his whole crew, your department can arrest them all at once." Rodriguez looked worried. "That's not exactly by the book, Commander." "Nothing I do is by the book," Marcus said with a small smile. "That's why it works." Rodriguez struggled with his decision. As a police officer, he should insist on following proper procedure. But he had seen what these criminals did to innocent business owners. And he knew Marcus's reputation. If anyone could track down Reese safely, it was him. "Okay," Rodriguez finally agreed. "But I'm coming with you." Marcus shook his head. "Too risky for your career. If we're spotted, you could lose your badge. I'm not letting you go alone." Rodriguez insisted. "You saved my life once, let me help you now." Marcus recognized the determined look. It was the same expression his Delta Force team had worn before dangerous missions. "All right, but we do this my way. Observation only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." As night fell, Marcus retrieved a small bag from his apartment. Inside were the tools of his former trade, a tactical vest, communications equipment, and night vision goggles. He hadn't used them in 3 years, but his hands remembered every piece. Rodriguez arrived at the meeting point wearing black civilian clothes as Marcus had instructed. His eyes widened when he saw Marcus's equipment. "You just had all this lying around?" he asked. "Old habits," Marcus said simply. He handed Rodriguez an earpiece. "Put this in. It's encrypted. No one can listen in." They drove separately to Buckhead, the wealthy area where Reese worked. Marcus had researched the security company and found Reese's schedule. Tonight he was supervising the guard shift at an exclusive gated community. Marcus parked his car several blocks away. "From here we go on foot," he told Rodriguez through the earpiece. "Stay 20 meters behind me. If I raise my left hand, stop. Right hand, take cover." "Roger that," Rodriguez replied, falling easily into military communication. As they moved through the shadows toward the gated community, Marcus felt a familiar feeling return, the heightened awareness of combat, the calm focus before a mission. Part of him had missed this, though he would never admit it. They found a position overlooking the security office, concealed by trees and darkness. Through his night vision goggles, Marcus could see Reese inside, talking on the phone. His expression was angry. "He knows something's wrong," Marcus whispered. His men should have reported back by now. Reese slammed down the phone and began typing frantically on a laptop. Marcus zoomed in with his goggles, trying to see the screen. "He's deleting files," Marcus said, getting ready to run. Just then, Reese looked up sharply, as if sensing he was being watched. For a moment, his eyes seemed to look directly at their hiding spot. Marcus froze, becoming completely still, a skill that had saved his life many times in enemy territory. "I think he made us," Rodriguez whispered nervously. "No," Marcus replied, softly. "But he knows something's coming, and he's getting ready to fight back." Marcus and Rodriguez watched as Reese left the security office carrying a laptop bag and a small suitcase. He looked nervous, constantly checking his surroundings. "He's running," Marcus whispered. "We need to follow him." They tracked Reese to a large house in an expensive neighborhood. The property had high walls and security cameras, much more protection than a normal house would need. "That's not his registered address," Rodriguez said, checking his phone. "According to records, He lives in an apartment downtown. This must be where they plan the robberies, Marcus said, and probably store the stolen goods before selling them. Through his night vision goggles, Marcus counted 3 men patrolling the grounds. They moved with military precision, not random criminals, but trained professionals. This confirmed his suspicion that Reese was recruiting ex-military men for his operation. "I'm calling for backup," Rodriguez said, reaching for his phone. Marcus stopped him. "Not yet. If we call this in, they'll destroy evidence before your people arrive. We need to see who else is inside." They moved closer, finding a position behind a thick hedge that gave them a view of the house windows. Inside, Reese was meeting with 4 other men. One of them was in a police uniform, a real officer, not a fake one. "That's Lieutenant Wilson from the 5th Precinct," Rodriguez whispered in shock. "He's head of evidence control." Now it all made sense. Lieutenant Wilson could access real police equipment, alter evidence, and warn the crew if police were getting close to catching them. He was the inside man. Marcus took photos with a special camera that could capture clear images in darkness. "This is all we need. Your department can get a warrant now." Just as they prepared to leave, a twig snapped behind them. Marcus spun around to see one of the guards standing there, gun raised. "Don't move," the guard said. "Boss, we've got intruders." Before Marcus could react, 2 more guards appeared, their weapons pointed at him and Rodriguez. They were caught. The men marched them into the house at gunpoint. Inside, Reese smiled coldly when he saw Marcus. Well, what do we have here?" Reese looked at Rodriguez, and his smile disappeared. "A cop? You're getting sloppy, Wilson." Lieutenant Wilson's face turned pale. "I've never seen him before. He must be undercover." "I'm not undercover," Rodriguez said. "I'm just a patrol officer who's tired of seeing innocent people robbed by fake cops." Reese turned his attention to Marcus. "And who are you? You don't move like a civilian." Marcus stayed silent, assessing the room. 6 men, all armed. Difficult odds, but he had faced worse. "Search them," Reese ordered. The guards took their phones and weapons. One of them handed Marcus's special phone to Reese, who examined it with curiosity. "Military-grade encryption," Reese noted. "You're not just some shop owner." He looked closer at Marcus's face. "Wait a minute. I know you." Marcus had hoped to avoid this, but it was too late now. "Johnson," Reese said slowly. "Commander Marcus. Johnson, Delta Force." He laughed without humor. "The famous ghost. They said you retired and disappeared." "I did," Marcus replied simply. Reese turned to his men. "This man is dangerous, very dangerous. He's the one who caught Mike and Donnie yesterday." "What are we going to do with them?" Lieutenant Wilson asked nervously. "Take them to the warehouse," Reese decided. "We need to clear this place out anyway. We'll deal with them later." As 2 guards moved to grab Marcus, he caught Rodriguez's eye and gave a tiny nod. It was time to act. Marcus moved with explosive speed, driving his elbow into the nearest guard's throat. The man dropped, gasping for air. Rodriguez followed Marcus's lead, tackling another guard to the ground. The room erupted into chaos. Reese shouted orders as his men scrambled to respond. Marcus moved through them like a shadow, his Delta Force training making his strikes devastatingly effective. 3 men were down in seconds. Lieutenant Wilson pulled his gun, but Rodriguez knocked it from his hand. "You disgrace that uniform," Rodriguez growled, pinning the corrupt officer to the floor. Marcus cornered Reese, who had grabbed a shotgun from a cabinet. "It's over, Reese, drop it." "I'm not going back to prison," Reese snarled, raising the weapon. Before he could fire, Marcus kicked the shotgun upward. The blast hit the ceiling, showering them with plaster. Marcus grabbed Reese's arm and twisted, until he heard a snap. Reese screamed in pain, dropping the gun. "You broke my arm," he shouted. "You're lucky that's all I broke," Marcus replied coldly, forcing Reese to the floor. With all the men subdued, Rodriguez used one of their phones to call for backup. Within minutes, police sirens wailed in the distance. "This is going to be hard to explain," Rodriguez said, looking at the unconscious men around them. "Just tell them the truth," Marcus suggested. "You followed a suspect and called for help when you found evidence of crimes." "And you?" Marcus smiled slightly. I was never here. Rodriguez understood. Marcus wanted to return to his quiet life, not become a public hero. I can make that work, but my captain will want to thank you somehow. Tell him to return the stolen goods to the business owners, Marcus said. That's all the thanks I need. When the police arrived, Marcus slipped away while Rodriguez handled the explanations. The officers found plenty of evidence in the house: stolen merchandise, fake police uniforms, and plans for future robberies. It was enough to put Reese and his entire crew in prison for many years. The next day, Marcus opened his shop as usual. He was surprised to see Officer Rodriguez waiting outside in his patrol car. Is there a problem? Marcus asked. Rodriguez shook his head. Just wanted to give you an update. We arrested 12 people total, including Lieutenant Wilson. We found over $300,000 in stolen goods that were returning to the owners, and we discovered Reese had been running similar operations in 3 other cities. Good work, Marcus said. It was your work, Rodriguez corrected him. By the way, my captain wants to know if you'd consider training some of our officers. Just basic tactics, nothing classified. We could use someone with your experience. Marcus considered the offer. Teaching police officers might help prevent corrupt ones like Wilson from abusing their power, and it would allow him to continue helping the community in a quiet way. I'll think about it, he promised. As Rodriguez drove away, Marcus saw James, Kim, and several other business owners approaching his shop. They carried food containers and small gifts, their way of saying thank you without making a big show of it. We got our merchandise back, James said happily. The police said they caught the whole gang. Nobody would tell us exactly how it happened, but we know you had something to do with it. Marcus accepted their thanks with humility. He didn't need recognition or rewards. Seeing these honest, hard-working people back in business was enough. That evening, after closing the shop, Marcus called his sister. I think I might stay in Atlanta a while longer, he told her. I'm starting to feel at home here. Good, she said. You've been running long enough, Marcus. Maybe it's time to build something that lasts. Marcus looked around his small shop. For years, he had been a destroyer, taking down enemies to protect his country. Now he was a builder, fixing broken electronics, building relationships with his neighbors, and helping his community heal. It wasn't the life he had planned, but it felt right. The fake officers had targeted him because he was a black business owner. They thought that made him weak, an easy target. Instead, they found a warrior who had been forged in the toughest battles and had come home to protect his own people. Marcus Johnson, the Delta Force ghost, had finally found peace, not by running from his past, but by using it to serve justice in his new home.